Hey everybody, this is Baylor and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to build an Instagram clone. So let's get started. The thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm using, if we gem list and look for my Rails installation, you can see that I have Rails 6 and Rails 5 too. And we want this video to be done with Rails 5.2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a trick to use a specific version of Rails when you do an install. So to do this, we're going to make a directory, and we're going to make this directory the name of our app. And so we're going to call this Instaton. And that is because tons are better than grams, right? And so if we're making an Instagram clone, we might as well make it better. And so we're going to make it Instaton. And what we're going to do inside of here is create a gem file, and we're going to have the source for this be our rubygems.org, and we're going to specify that we want Rails, and we want version greater than 5.2, which is 5.2.3. But what we're going to do is bundle install, and this is going to fetch our Ruby gems. And now if we say bundle exec Rails, and we're going to install a new app, we're going to install the current directory, and it's going to use the name of this directory to be our Rails app. And we're going to say that we don't want any unit test, and we want Webpack. Boom. So we're going to go ahead and create this, and it's going to ask if we want to overwrite. We say absolutely, do it, do it, do it, do it. And so as you can see, it goes for an install, it installs Webpack, and it gets us all set up and all this wonderful stuff. And it takes forever because it's installing node modules. And if you don't know anything about node modules, there's a lot of them. I suppose that's not a very good answer. There's a lot of them. That is absolutely the truth. The problem with node modules is that there are so many of them used as dependencies. So if you fetch one, there's a good chance you're going to get 100, and then that 100 is going to get 1,000, and one of those 1,000 is going to get 1,000,000, and suddenly you have more packages for a small app than the entire Apple organization uses to build my desktop computer you see in front of you. Okay, so it's finally done, and it finally for me is different than it is for you, because probably happened pretty quick for you. But if we look at the directory, you can see it's initialized Git for us because Rails does that, because Rails is awesome. And what we're going to do is we're going to add our git ignore file, we're going to say we're creating a project, and then we're going to add everything else, and we're going to say we're adding Rails. Cool. And what I'm going to do real quick is just hop over into another pane. I'm going to go into that application, and I guess I'll do one more thing. We're going to say yarn add bootstrap. And this is just so that we can have a nice theme for application. But with that done, what we can do is say Rails S, and then we're going to come over here, and I have to go back into this, and I'm going to say bin webpack dev server. And now we're going to open this path at localhost port 3000, and you can see where it says we're on our Rails installation with Rails 5.2.3. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to change this up to be an actual Instagram type application. And so I'm going to hop into my layout for my application, and I'm going to do also hop into my style sheets for app asset style sheets application. I'm going to rename this file to be a CSS, a SAS file, and I'm going to import bootstrap SAS bootstrap. Cool. And then I'm going to hop in. I'm just like jumping all over the place. I apologize. We need to add a root, and this is going to be for our pages home. We're going to add a controller for our pages controller. We're going to call this pages controller, and here's some application controller. And we're going to define a home action. Cool. And then we're just going to go into our app views pages /home.html.b. And inside of here, we're going to say this is Instaton because a ton is better than a gram. Perfect. And so we refresh the page. You can see once Rails kind of catches up, you can see it's loaded our application, and you can see we've already started loading our bootstrap styling. So what we want to do now is hop into our layout for the application. We're going to wrap this in a container, and boom, it's starting to look like an app. And what I'm going to do is time lapse myself adding the nav bar here because you don't want to see all that, and it's pretty boring. Boom. All right. So as you can see, we have a nav bar here. Gives us a little bit of a look for what we might expect an application to have with some navigation and an action item button. And the thing we want to do is add user profiles. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the devise gem. And so what we'll do is we're just going to go into our gem file and we'll come to the bottom. We'll add a devise reference, bundle install. We've got devise, and what we want to do is say Rails G devise install. And this has done a lot of stuff. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say Rails G devise views. And then the last thing we want to do is generate our user. So we'll say Rails generate devise user. And we're going to add a username, a first name, and a last name. And we'll go into that migration. So create users. And what we want to do is just make sure this can't be null on all three of these. And then we're going to add an index to users for the username. And we'll try to match this and say unique is true. And now we can say Rails DB migrate. And then what we want to do is hop into our user model, and we're just going to add additional validations for the username. It has to have a presence of true, and it has to be unique. And we're going to validate our first name for our presence, and we'll validate our last name for our presence. Perfect. Okay, as you can see, it shows us not anything different. It shows us an actual error. And to do this, to fix this, we just need to restart our Rails server because Rails doesn't auto reload dependencies as we add them. So if we refresh now, we are going to see this works. Perfect. And what we want to do is, that reminds me that I want to pull this like so. I like my route at the top. What we need to do is add some session management links over here. So we'll do that. And what we're going to do is go into our layouts for our application. And below this, under this navigation, we're going to add another one. Okay, and as you can see, I've added these 4 links. We're basically having a flag of if we're signed in, then we show the current users with their full name and a logout link, and notice that we are calling this with method delete, and so that is so we can't log out by making a GET request, and we're using the magical devise destroy user session path, and then we have our sign in and our create an account button. So if we refresh, you can see we're not logged in, so we need to create an account. And look at this form that we've got. So we need to fix that real quick. So we'll do that by going to our registration new view. And let's style this to make it bootstrappy. So check it out. We have a form here, and if we fill this out real quick, when we sign up, you can see we get an error that says all our fields are blank, and yet you saw me fill these in. And so the reason for that is if we look at the devise documentation, we are going to see this area here that tells you how to deal with strong parameters. And so we basically just need to copy these few lines of code into our application controller. So let's do that real quick. And on our sign up keys, we have our username, our first name, and our last name. So if we try this again, and I refill this out, if we sign up again, you can see we get logged in, and we know we do because we're inside of this user signed in, but we don't have this full name method on our user class. So we'll add that by just going into the user class, and we'll come down to the bottom and define a full name. And it is taking the first name, the last name, and joining it with a space. If we refresh the page, now we have our username and our logout link. If we log out, you can see it takes us out. If we go to the sign-in page, we have another form to do. So let me do that one real quick as well. So we have a login form that now looks pretty much correct. And we log in. You can see that we get logged back in. So we have all of our devise hooked up, and we'll commit them. So the next thing you need to do is add our uploading. And so what we'll do for this is we're going to generate a new model called image. And we're going to say this belongs to a user. And we're also going to say this has a description. And it'll just be F-type text. So we'll create this. and we'll just go into our create images migration, and we just want to make sure this is not nullable because it is required, and we'll do db migrate. And the other thing we want to do is hop into our user model, and we just want to say this has many images. And so that sets up our whole schema. And so what we're going to do real quick is just we want to wire up this upload button. So we're going to define a couple of routes for this. We're going to have a get to an upload route that's just going to go to images new. And then we want to add resources for our images. And we're going to say this is only for the index, the show, and the create actions. And so if we go back to our layout where we have our upload link, we want to change this to upload path. So we refresh, you can see if I click on this, it takes us to upload, but we don't have our images controller. So we'll define that app controllers images controller.rb, and this will be an images controller. In here, some application controller, and we'll define a new action, and this is just equal to image.new. And we'll go ahead and define our create action. And because we're using strong params, we'll define this private method here. And we'll say this params require image. And we're going to permit an image to be uploaded and the description to be tagged. And we'll do for this, say image. Oh, this is not plural. And here we're going to use our current user.images.create. We'll call it .build actually, and we're going to pass in our image params. We'll say if image.save, then redirect to the image path for our image with a flash message if we add this, and if we fail, then we're just going to render the new action. Okay, so this is our full controller, but this doesn't fix the issue because now we don't have our view. So we're going to go to app views images new.html.erb, and we're going to create a file that says upload image or a heading. So this is starting to come together, and we want to put this in the center, and so we'll just put this inside of a row with a width of 6 and an offset of 3. And what we want to do is have a form for our image. So we have this form, but it doesn't look very good, and primarily because today when you upload images you don't expect to see a file field like this. And so what we want to use is active storage, and we're going to use the active storage drag and drop library to make our life easy. Okay, so what we do is we just hop over to our gem file, super simple, and we're going to say active storage drag and drop. And if we fix that and we bundle, and now we just go over and restart our server just so that we have this gem loaded, we can go back to our form, and we're going to change this from file field to drag and drop file field. So when we refresh, we get an error, and it says we don't have an image for our image. And to do that, to make that work, we're going to hop over into our image model, and we're going to say has one attached image. And so now when we refresh, this is going to link our image model to an active storage image object. And it almost looks right because that file disappeared, but the problem is we're not loading the CSS and the JavaScript to actually make this work. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop into our app assets JavaScript application.js, and we're going to require our active storage drag and drop. And then we're also going to hop over into our app asset style sheets application.sass, and we're going to import that active storage drag and drop here as well. And so we refresh, you can see that we get this beautiful box. And we put a file in it, you can see it shows us something, but it doesn't look very good. And the first thing we notice is we don't have any text. And that comes from the second parameter. So we can say drag and drop your image here. And so now we refresh, we have our text, but it still doesn't look very good. And so what I want to do is grab some CSS that I wrote earlier today, and we'll just hop over into our Sass file, and I'm going to paste that in here. And it's just a bunch of stuff to like make it different colors and add a different border on it, and we align these pending items. So now if we refresh and look at it, you can see we have this box that looks a little bit more presentable. And if we drop our file on it, you can see we get this enormous piece here, but if I grab a smaller file name, we get to look at it like this. And the other thing that I did earlier today that I think is pretty cool is if we go back to our view and we come to the bottom, we add a script tag. I added this JavaScript to it. And what it does here is we initialize a file reader, we grab some of our DOM elements, and what we're doing here is basically saying that when we initialize a new file, we want to read that file and make that the background image. And likewise, when we remove an image, then we delete the background image. And so with this done, when we drag a file over here, you can see it kind of fills in the background to give you the feeling that this is the file that you're uploading. So it's pretty neat, and if we delete it, likewise, it goes away. So this is some cool code that you may actually want to use on your application because obviously you're probably not going to use this application you're not going to create Instaton. I'm just pretty sure that's not going to happen. Okay, so if we do this, now we grab our image and we say, and if we post this image, oh, we got an error. And how do we debug these errors? Because this is something I actually did earlier today. We're going to grab this image. We're going to do it again. Post. We go to our network tab. It tells us we have an error for our direct uploads. And Rails actually tells us what to do. We run this Rails active storage install. So if we do that, you'll see it copies over our migration. And we'll say Rails DB migrate. So now if we refresh and we try this all over again. So we'll grab this and we'll say we post this. You can see that we get an error. No images.save. I can't believe I did that. Why did nobody tell me that in the comments? If you saw that in the comments, you should post below and just let everybody know how much better you are than I am at seeing stuff like this. So where is it? Here it is. So we'll resubmit that, and we get redirected to an action that does not exist. So what we're going to do is just hop up here, and we're going to find our show action, and we're going to say image equals image.find params ID. Perfect. So refresh, and now we're going to miss the view. So we go to app, views, images, show.html.erb, and we're just going to post and say viewing an image. That's probably not necessary. What we're going to do is just make a 2-column layout. Cool, so here's our 2-column layout, and you can see that when we want to show an image, all we have to do is reference the image object with an image tag. And then as you can see, we're going to have an error because I've referenced this profile path, which I haven't created. So let's just define that route, even though we won't actually have it. And what we'll do is say that we want to go to /username to user show and as profile. Cool. And if we go back and refresh, you can see we get this beautiful application where we can see the image that's been uploaded with the person that uploaded it. And if we click on it, we get an error where we can't actually see the user controller. So what we need to do is first go in here and say this is users, plural. And we're going to go into this and we'll define our show action. And we're going to say user equals user.find by params ID. And we want to define our images, and this is equal to our user.images.order, and we'll order by the created at descending. And we'll do something like limit 15 or something like that. And so now if we go into our view for our users, we can show our user full name here. And then what we want to do is define a partial here that will say render, and we'll call it shared images, and we'll assign images to the images variable here, and we'll define that at views shared /underscore images.html.erb. And what we're going to do here is just define a card columns here. This will give it kind of a Pinterest type grid, and we're going to call on our images.each. We're going to grab that image. We're going to define a card here, and I'm going to give this a very small amount of padding. And what we're going to do is just put out our image tag for our image.image, and we're going to give this that same 100% width. And then what we're going to do is output a link to view the image, which will go to an image path for our image ID. And what we're going to do here is just give this a button of secondary And what I'll do here is call stretch link. And if we refresh and view this, oh, can't find a user without an ID. Oh, my mistake. In our user's controller, this is find by username. Perfect. And on our user show, need to fix the case on that. No images. Bail array. Perfect. And this did not do right. Shared images. It would help if I could spell correctly. And as you can see now, the whole area here is a link. And if we click on it, it takes us to that image. Perfect. And what I'm going to do here is just add some margin bottom, like so. Maybe make it fit. Perfect. Cool. So we have a card, and if we come over here and we upload some more pictures, and we get some more over here, and we go view the user profile, you can see it starts to fill it in. And what I'm going to do is create another profile and start uploading more images. So if we go to look at Bob's profile, oh, I never fixed that link up here. So we'll go into our application layout, and over here for this root path, we'll go to profile path for our current user username. Perfect. So if we look at our profile, you can see our images, and we switch over to Baylor's, you can see his images. And so what we want to do is have this recent link up here show us a culmination of everybody's activity. And so what we're going to do is come up to this recent, and we're going to change this to our images path. And then we'll go to our images controller, and we'll define index on here. And this will be images equals image dot order by created at descending limit 15. And we're just going to go into app views images index.html.erb, and we'll say recent uploads. And here we're just going to render out that same partial with the same type of images. And if we go here to the recent page, you can see we get to see everybody's uploads. And if we click on one, then we get to see this is Bob Wiley. If we click on a different one, you can see this is Baylor, and we can see Baylor's profile. So I want to thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.